we will now be having the session, Cartoons and Conservation Communication, the much awaited and the most exciting session, I would say. A brief into the session. The cartoon has always been the most shareable commodity in a publication, summarizing the mood of the nation on any given day. But can it go beyond a satirical slap, a chuckle, and a share? Find out how cartoons can be used as a handshake between ecology, conservation, and the lay reader, influencing public opinion as well as policy. And yes, everyone, for today we have a speaker with us. With a thunderous applause, may I please invite our speaker, Mr. Rohan Chakravarty, onto the stage. Mr. Rohan Chakravarty is a cartoonist, illustrator, and the creator of Green Humour, a series of cartoons, comics, and illustrations on wildlife and nature conservation. Cartoons from Green Humour appear periodically in newspaper columns, magazines, and journals, and have been used for several projects and campaigns on wildlife awareness and climate change. Rohan is also the author of 9 books and has won awards by UNDP, Sanctuary Asia, WWF International, the Royal Bank of Scotland, and Bangalore Literature Festival for his work. He is notorious for rolling up into a ball like a pangolin to avoid answering the phone or meeting people. All right, so we are indeed privileged to have him with us right here today. Over to the session. A gentle announcement for the sessions that is happening here in the Sambage village and the Mysuru hall simultaneously. The session will be starting at 2 p.m. So I request all the registered attendees to kindly join in on time. Thank you. Over to you for the session.
Thanks a lot for the introduction, ma'am. May I have my, okay, great, thanks. I like to keep things interactive and playful. So before I get on with the presentation, I'd just like all of you to see this visual that's up on the screen. We have the honor of one of the scientists whose research this cartoon is based on to be present right here. Her name's Maria, and Maria, could you please, okay. So the premise of this particular piece that I did was this very beautiful lizard called the rock agama is your neighbor in Bangalore, okay? And because of the pressures that Bangalore's overly concretized and urban environment is, the pressure that it is exercising on this creature, the creature that is the male of the species is beautiful, has this beautiful red color normally, but it's losing this color and becoming a very pale variant of its own self, living in and around Bangalore. So Maria and Anuradha's research has found out that rock agamas that inhabit suburban or rural parts of the city still manage to retain all these colors, but the ones that are at the core of the city are becoming paler in color. And now I want all of you to try and fill up these dialogue boxes in your mind. What could these two agamas be saying to each other? It needn't be anything theoretical or overly complicated, but just have a little fun with yourselves, bring out your inner children, or maybe bring out your inner agama lizards, and tell me what they must be thinking. Just raise your hands if anybody would like to volunteer. Not Maria, of course. Yes, ma'am. Sorry. Sorry? Are we related? Okay. And you, Yashoda? Where do you leave your clothes? Okay. Yes, Sujata? Good ones. I'll show you the original captions at the end of the presentation, but before that, I also have another game to play with you. Why is this not working? Okay. All right. Where do I have to point this? Okay. Okay. Got it. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have watched this film. Am I blocking the screen? Okay, I won't walk. I'm pretty sure all of you have watched this film, or at least know about the film series. Can I ask you who made these films? The Batman series? Okay, and how many films were there in the series? 3. And can you name the films? Batman Rises? Dark Knight Rises. Yeah. Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, and Dark Knight. Okay. Now, can you name 4 or 5 species of bats found in your neighborhood? It's a legitimate question. Don't say bats, say, name the species. Fruit bat, okay, that's still a broad classification of bats. Yeah.
Yeah, one is the Indian flying fox.
Okay.
Then the other one is, what's his name? I forgot the
Okay, thank you. That's good enough. But the point I want to illustrate is that this is not your fault or mine, that we don't know the species of bats that are in our immediate neighborhoods and vicinities. It's the fault of the way information is presented to us and information that we are forced to consume. The way we are forced to consume information. It distances us from nature actively, and there is a purpose behind it. There's a larger design behind it, which is something I try to combat with my work, with every cartoon I make. Whether or not it is succeeding, I don't know. It had succeeded for a while. A few of those examples I'll be presenting to you. But whether it is still successful or not, that is a discussion I'd like to have with you by means of this presentation. And it is this disconnect that has led us to a point where fossil fuel delegates or the fossil fuel lobby makes most of the environmental decisions at forums like the COP, the UN Climate Conference, for all of us, for our entire race. And these decisions will, that have been frozen in the recently concluded COP30 will impact us for the next 30 years or so, or even more. A lot has been spoken about Nicobar, but I just want you to imagine a scenario where a person you know may have had an accident or an organ malfunction, and he or she has to undergo a liver transplant. And you transplant eyes where the liver belongs. Can you imagine that kind of scenario? That's exactly what is happening with compensatory afforestation for Nicobar happening in Haryana. And all this is happening because of the disconnect that we have, you and I have with nature. It's not Mr. Modi's fault that this policy has come into place. It is the fault of the people who have voted him to power, because they have this disconnect between them and nature. And environmental concerns have never been an electoral issue in this country. A lot of the time times when I'm doing cartoons on the Ministry of Environment of India, I seldom even have to attempt to write a joke. They write that joke themselves. And this is one such example when our most capable environment minister in history, Mr. Prakash Javadekar, he has a record of signing the most clearances as the environment minister. So, and there were no qualms about it. He bragged about this in his portfolio and on his social media. So there was a policy that came out in 2020, the draft EIA. It was a revision of an existing policy, which aimed to make the industrialization of natural spaces in India very easy for corporations. And that's when I did this cartoon to try and simplify what this policy was about for the layman, where environment impact assessment actually stands for enabling India's auction. This particular visual gained a lot of traction online. It eventually became more or less an online phase of the campaign against the draft EIA, which went on to garner 6 lakh signatures and push the government on the back foot with it. So that's when I began to realize that cartooning has a tangible impact, or can have a tangible impact, when it comes in collaborative force with various other forces, like citizen-led action, like social media, like print and digital media as well. Sorry, I have an annoying habit of walking around like a caged leopard. Please pardon me. So again, a lot of talk has already been dealt about the cheetah reintroduction, but I'd just like you to know about this incident. I used to be the MP government, the Forest Department of Madhya Pradesh's blue-eyed boy. I've done their mascots, I've done conservation posters for the department, and then this happened. And of course, I had to do a cartoon about the cheetah reintroduction. And I'll just leave you to read the piece for a bit. And this was the last day I heard from the Forest Department of Madhya Pradesh. I've never done any work for them after this. Representatives of Atria are here, I think, and this was done in collaboration with them. The disconnect that I've been speaking about, the disconnect between nature and lay minds, manifests in many different ways. One of them is the aggressive afforestation campaigns that our governments run, often on landscapes where forests don't belong. And one such victim of such ill-informed afforestation campaigns is the Indian kosa, which I think now is classified as either vulnerable or near threatened on the red list, when it used to be very common in all our scrub and grassland areas. That's just self-explanatory. That's the great Indian bustard, by the way, another victim of ill-informed environmental policy. Now, scientists have a problem, even though they do great work, and I often keep banking on their work to create my cartoons. And that problem is, I'll just give you a summary. As is evident by this encounter, this racophorid bush frog occurs in association with its namesake, the Ochlandra ebractiata bamboo, which it also uses to breed. Guys, leopard. Listen, pal, you either learn to simplify science or I cane you with my Ochlandra ebractiata. I don't blame scientists for this. They are supposed to be doing this, okay? But creative communicators like me or some among the audience like you need to take this upon ourselves to take their wonderful work to people who it matters. Now, I'll just give you a few examples from my own experience with trying to simplify science and trying to bridge the gap between science and lay people. And this is I'm calling it a case study just because scientists understand this kind of language better, but it's not a case study really. It's just an informal observation. So, in the Mediterranean Sea, I did a project on something called dolphin depredation, which is happening a lot in the Mediterranean Sea these days. What is dolphin depredation? Dolphins are damaging fishing gear to take the catch out of it. Now that belongs to the dolphin, in my opinion, but it's causing a lot of conflict between dolphins and fishing communities who have traditionally had a fair amount of peace between them in these regions. So ACOBAMS, which is a treaty of dolphin conservation in this area, they commissioned me to do a comic book which would kind of change the perception of dolphins among fishing communities, especially the younger members of the community. So I had to do this book called A Day Out with Delphi, where the children of a fisherman go spend a time at sea with a dolphin. Now, in order to have some cultural nuances and a sort of a sense of romance in my story, I needed to investigate the cultural links between European fishing communities and dolphins that exist in the region. Now, for example, if you talk about any animal and its cultural associations with Indian communities, say, for example, the Gangetic dolphin. Dolphins are vahanas of so many of our gods, and they are also an important part of folklore. But there was no such cultural link that I could unearth out of speaking to scientists in these European countries, Spain, France, Italy, the Mediterranean ones. Thankfully, at this conference that I was attending, there were North Africans as well. People from Tunisia, people from Libya, people from Algeria. They told me that their towns still have murals, glass paintings, decorations on various architecture that still celebrate their links with dolphins. And then I could use that as a hook for my story. So it took the presence of romantic North Africans to save the life of a romantic Indian in Spain, where the conference was happening, which is touted as the epicenter of romance in Hollywood, right? Vicky Cristina Barcelona, I'm sure some of you have watched that film. Everything that Hollywood says about romance in France or Spain is false. If there's any European present here, you can take me out on a date and prove me wrong if you're offended. I'm taken, by the way, I was kidding. So, dispassionate, SciComm has consequences. So take Europe, for example, and how they handle their wildlife. Apex predators are keystone species and the backbones of every ecosystem. Together, we must ensure their protection all around the world. This is a classic European outlook when they are presenting to the world. But what happens when it's their own backyard? A culture of coexistence has practically never existed in European history. USA, similarly. You all remember this incident? Can you name the people in the picture? Will Smith and? Right. So this slap got more prime time footage in one day than climate change got in 1 year. I'm quoting statistics. I'm not making this up. And so I did this cartoon. Did you know that the average mainstream news portal devotes more space to the Oscars in a day than to climate coverage the entire year? The polar bear says, Will Smith, would you please punch a news editor for us? And no wonder the US has come to see this day today. All of you who are chuckling, please remember, we are not far behind. We just have a different face. So the tangibility of cartoons is something that I've been very passionate to know of. And there have been a few instances from my own work where it has made small but important impacts. Like this cartoon, it's about the finger monkey. That's why it is showing us the finger. It's called the finger monkey. It's the pygmy marmoset, the world's smallest monkey. And it's heavily traded, illegally of course. And when I put out, this is just an excerpt from the comic. When I put out this cartoon, a person from Peru reached out to me saying that I was considering buying this pet and I refrained. Thank you for this comic. Similarly, I've done a piece on sanitary products available in India that are eco-friendly. I do not menstruate, I know nothing about sanitation, sanitary products, but when this cartoon came out, a lot of female readers reached out to me saying that we weren't aware of this, so thank you for helping us make that switch. And it meant a lot to me. This is, again, an excerpt of a comic strip that discourages people to collect seashells because seashells form secondary habitats for a lot of marine creatures. And of course, a lot of people have stopped collecting seashells, people who've read my work and my books. This is an excerpt from a comic that discourages people to feed monkeys. And the rationing of food is making monkeys very aggressive, especially along highways, and also making them accident prone. So this was picked up by the Sikkim Forest Department, and it's been put out as signboards in several places in and around their protected areas. There are many such examples. A recent cartoon of mine that speaks about passport inequalities and how it is affecting science, how easy it is for the global northerners to acquire visas to our parts, and how difficult vice versa. So that has been included in an EU or European Union document on visas, and hopefully it'll be a part of the transition of visa rules in future. Anyway, but that was the tangibility of cartoons. Cartoons come with limitations as well. And those limitations manifest as language barriers, literacy barriers, and also access to media, because a lot of people in our country, especially in rural areas, do not have the access to the media that you and I engage with. And so in order to bridge these gaps, I try to bring out my cartoons in Hindi. There's a magazine called Chuckle that comes out of Bhopal that has run my work in Hindi for a long period of time. I've published a lot of books with Pratham. This one, for example, was translated in 14 regional languages. It was created with the Madras Croc Bank Trust to address human-snake conflict and to educate people living around fields how to identify the big 4 venomous snakes and how to avoid or manage confrontations with them. And there's also this book, which is an entirely wordless picture book called Where's Gaju's Herd. It's about a young elephant who loses track of his family and how, in the process of reuniting with his family, goes through all the threats that elephants face in India. This was brought out by the Wildlife Trust of India, and it's been, I think it's traveled to every Indian village that has the issue of human-elephant conflict prevalent in it. again, a lot of people may not approve of humorous depictions of serious issues. And so I also illustrate for projects like creative representations of biodiversity as means of maps, which I've done both for national parks and countries and independent territories like Hong Kong. And just to give you an example of what is the kind of impact that I am envisioning of cartoons, or I at least used to envision when media was still, collaborative and a healthy space for discussion and discourse to happen. So this was a series called Saving Our Stripes that I did with the Times of India. And it was meant to celebrate the 50 years of Project Tiger in India. And I took that opportunity to also speak about various problems that tigers are going through even today. One of them happens to be the loss of tiger corridors, which is affecting the health of a tiger gene pool. And I did this very simple, more an illustration rather than a cartoon, that accompanied an editorial piece in the newspaper that day. And I heard from one of India's leading tiger geneticists, Dr. Uma Ramakrishnan. She said that she would like to use this cartoon in her talks because it eliminated the jargon around genetic studies of conservation. And I was very touched because that was the kind of impact I was envisioning when I create pieces like these, a friendly handshake between scientists, between readers, and between the subject itself. Similarly, this was a cartoon on what El Nino and La Nina are, and what the disruptions in their pattern, the kind of havoc that they cause on the planet. And I heard from Dr. Aparajita Datta, who's an ornithologist, a leading ornithologist. Okay, all right, I'll just get there. And she said it eliminates all the fancy sci jargon. She's a scientist herself. And that was quite heartening to know. And that's exactly the kind of friendly handshake that I am envisioning between my subject, wild animals, my readers, and scientists themselves. These are some of my books you can find on the in the store outside. But there's this neighbor of mine. I think she's 13 or 14, and she can name every car model on the street. But when I ask her which the most common dragonfly in my neighborhood is, she's unable to. And I think the day when she is able to make that switch, I think I would have succeeded with my work. A lot of people tell me to animate my cartoons, to make motion graphics out of them, or make reels, even worse. I stick to my guns. I stick to static art because I feel that it is important for you and I to read, because the nuance of certain issues, like why what Vantara is doing is not wildlife conservation, is not even animal welfare. It is just a private zoo and a gimmick. To understand this, you have to read. There is no way that complicated nuance can be registered in a layperson's mind if he or she does not read. And this is why I do static work, static cartoons that prompt you to pause and reflect and form your own opinion rather than me spoon feeding you with an opinion. Thank you, that's it. And this is the original cartoon as promised. If you have any questions for me, I'd be very happy to take them now.
Thank you for the lovely talk.
Ma'am, can you be louder? I can barely hear you.
Thank you for the lovely talk.
Thanks.
I had a question on climate change anxiety. Do you have to separate yourself from your work in order to create the work, and how much, like, I can understand that creating each comic requires extensive amount of research, so that could lead to anxiety. So how do you deal with mental health issues?
Yeah, I do have climate anxiety, but it's manageable because I don't have children. So I know a lot of people who have it far worse than me, and I think I owe it to them because I come with certain privileges, and I would like to use those privileges to create art, which is the best I can do, to address others' concerns as well. And that's the policy I follow. Is that it? Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the session. My parents are not allowing me own a pet. So what is your relationship with your dog in that picture? You are saying that you don't have children.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is your relationship with that dog?
I meant human children. Of course, that is my child.
So, so what is that person called?
Climate anxiety does not affect Sakshi. That's her name, Sakshi.
Nice, sir.
All right, thanks everyone. A special thanks to GLF for making this space for green literature and not, green animation or green reels, and in a day like today. Thanks a lot for having me here as well.
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, once again, a great round of applause for Mr. Rohan Chakravarty. Thank you for that wonderful session. We all know it's an afternoon session, but our audience were glued, I would say hooked to your presentation. And if you agree with me, let's applaud him with a thunderous applause for that. Let me take this opportunity to invite Mr. Santosh Jairam onto the stage. Please join me on the stage, sir. He's the advisor of GLF and Green Business Literature Festival speaker. Please join me to present a token of appreciation to a speaker. Once again, thank you so much, Rohan. We hope to host you in our future editions as well. Thank you, Santosh sir. Thank you, Rohan. Can we please have a photograph with both of you right here? As they capture this moment,